I am very pleased to introduce Lilia Zheltova this evening. She's talking about the Russian tradition of music education for gifted students, which begins very early and continues through 16 years. And she will go into all the details about that and how she adapts it for our American students. Lilia was born in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, former Soviet Union, where she attended the special music school. She received her bachelor's and master's degrees in musicology at the St. Petersburg Conservatory in Russia. She taught at the Petrozavodsk Music College and then worked as lead musicologist at the Tashkent Opera House and Philharmonic. Ms. Zheltova has also appeared as an arts commentator on TV and radio programs and has published over 50 articles in newspapers and magazines. In 1990, Lilia immigrated to the United States. Currently, Ms. Zheltova appears as an accompanist for several Bay Area companies, including San Francisco State University, Marin Ballet, and ACT, and also works as an accompanist for Eurythmy and choir at the San Francisco Waldorf High School. She's performed as a pianist in Europe, Asia, and Australia with the San Francisco Youth Eurythmy Troupe. And of course, she teaches at Community Music Center and in her private studio. We're very fortunate to have her on our faculty. So I'd like to turn this over now to Lilia to introduce her topic for the evening.
Thank you, Grace, for such a great introduction. So, our topic today is the Russian piano school, tradition of Russian piano school, and how it can be adapted to the today's American teaching and today's American music education system. So, as Grace said, I was, you know, there is a lot of books and textbooks about history, about methodology of Russian piano school, but I would like to concentrate today in today's presentation on my own personal experience and what I took from this, what I took from my studying piano in Soviet Union, and what I brought and keep bringing to this American student today. You know, like it says, education is what left in your head after you finish studying. So that's what I'm trying to uh, introduce to my students and try to keep their knowledge with them for the rest of their life. Tradition of Russian music, Russian piano school probably formed and started with brother Rubinstein, Anton Rubinstein, who was founder and first director of St. Petersburg Conservatory, which opened in 1862. And then his brother Nikolai, who did the same thing in Moscow and opened Moscow Conservatory 4 years later in 1866. And throughout 19th century and 20th century, there was lots of great and very successful pedagogues in Russia, including Goldenweiser, Igumnov, family of Gnesins. There was three sisters and a father who were all teaching. There was Heinrich Negaus, of course, who just make a produce a lot of wonderful students, including Svetoslav Richter and many others. And then in Soviet period, which I'm going to concentrate today on early, in the beginning music. So there was Anna Artabalevskaya and Alexander Nikolaev, which everybody who studied Russia in Soviet Union knows. I will concentrate on my experience, which happened to be in late 60s and 70s, and but I don't know how it's now in Russia and what changes in music education there happen. So it's I can't say anything about that. So, Chantel, could you please put the second slide? First slide is just the name of the. presentation today. No, the second slide, the previous one. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today, about music education system and curriculum and the study. And then, so what is the main characteristic of Russian music school and how I try to achieve it in my lesson here in United States at CMC. So I was born in Tashkent, and my grandmother was, so you can stop sharing for now. My grandmother was a pianist. My parents didn't do anything with music. They studied when they were children, but they were doctors. And my older sister went and became a very prominent pianist and teacher, and she lives in Sweden now and doing the same thing what I'm doing here. And that was very natural for me to go in her step and go to special music school. Now, can we have a slide number 3? Yeah, so that's how it works. You audition to go to preparatory class, and if you're successful, so what they check rhythm, if you can match the pitch, and so on and so on. And you study there 1 or 2 years, and then you audition again to be accepted to the special music school. And the special music school works like a school of the arts here. So it's combined with general education, but it starts from the first grade and goes to grade 11. We had 11 years. Regular school in Russia had 10 years. We have extra 1 year to because everything is mixed together. You can have first period of music history, then literature, then math, then you go to ear training, and so on and so on. And then when you finish your music school, this 11 years of special music school, you go to conservatory. Somewhere in the end of 8th grade, I think. So I decide that I don't want to sit and practice for 6 hours every day, and I would like to get a little bit wider view, and I switched to musicology, theory and musicology. And I started to study many different subjects with that. And yeah, I cannot play 12 transcendental Liszt etudes in one setting, but I got to study how to read and how to play, let's say, orchestral score and choir score, and deeper study history and theory of music. So there is another alternative. If you didn't get to this special music school, and the special music school is usually in big cities and capital of all Soviet Republic, because everywhere would be conservatory, and by the conservatory would be special music school. But you can go to regular music school. It's at 7 years. And then if you want to continue, you go to junior college, and there is 4 years. So you need to finish school, the regular school, which is 8 classes, and then it's like high school, but it's junior music college. And then you study there for 4 years, and then you audition again, and you get a lot of exit exam and entrance exam to get to conservatory for 5 years. Now I know it's different, because they divide conservatory course on 3 years and 2 years to get bachelor degree and master degree. When I went there, it was kind of combined together. Can we have a next slide, please? That's the curriculum of music if you start to do, even if just the regular music school. You have private lesson, 45 minutes twice a week. Sometimes you have extra lesson. Then you mandatory having 1 hour or 2 hours of theory and sight singing and ear training. And a little bit later, not from the first, but a little bit later, you start to study music literature and music appreciation and history. And everybody needs to sing in a choir. There is no exception. With this knowledge, I came to United States and I saw that, and probably like many of us, we have just 30 minutes a week for a student, and then everything else is optional. And I really grateful and I really appreciate what CMC doing for people who wants to study deeper. This young musician program, which offer music theory and appreciation and chamber music and musicianship. So I think it's absolutely great. But you need to adjust somehow your teaching instead of at least 1.5 hours a week to 30 minutes a week. And that's supposed to include theory and everything else. So that's what I'm trying to do. Now, let's go to the, no, let's stay there. Let's stop sharing for now. What was the atmosphere and what was the attitude during these years of study? Uh, just imagine you go on a corridor in special music school and then you hear scream and yell and the door of some private studio open and you see the music book flying through the corridor, and then the poor little guy would exit crying, or a little girl crying and sobbing. What's happened? I didn't do my homework. I didn't practice 4 hours a day. So I just practiced a little bit less, and then I couldn't finish memorizing my concerto or something. That was very often. And did we were afraid of our teachers? Yes, very often. And on the other side, the music teacher, if you go to music school, become very close to you, and it become like almost family member, because you spend so much time with that, and the relationship are so intimate, and so that's very hard not to be attached to each other. And very often teachers attach to their student also. So the greatest example is the teacher of Evgeny Kissin, who become his second mother. Yeah, and as you can see, the whole system is designed to develop and raise professional musician. And of course, not everybody will become professional musician. People are leaving at some point, kids leaving at some point, some with regret, some with big relief. And unfortunately, lots of people never turn to music anymore. And so that's the big disadvantage of that. But if you stay with music, and if you really want to succeed in this, so then you experience the greatest joy, and dedication to your profession gives you lifetime achievement. So when I came to United States, it was very hard for me to adjust to this very minimal time of lessons what we have. And then it was amazing to me that adults will come and study, and that it's amazing to me that not everybody are trying to be professional musicians. So the music education become part of like well-rounded all over education, and kind of holistic approach to development of child, and that people become lifelong lovers of music. And I can see the most of the time full houses and all the concert, and so In Russia, of course, if you can look at the Moscow Conservatory Concert Hall or St. Petersburg Conservatory, of course, or Philharmonic, there is a lot of people. If you go to anywhere else, it's empty, and musicians are struggling. And that's why everybody who wants to achieve something needs to go to the central city of Moscow and St. Petersburg. And unfortunately, music didn't become the main attraction for people in Russia, and that's it's designed and it's developed in only very a small circle of elite in a big capitals and big cities. All right, with that we're gonna go to characteristic of Russian music school. Yeah, one thing I wanted to say. So I think in the 20th century, especially, and it's continuing, so lots of Russian people, Russian teachers left Russia and they settled everywhere in the world. And probably the brightest example was Joseph and Rosina Levin, who left after Russian Revolution and settled up in New York. And Rosina Levin was a teacher of Van Kleinberg. And nowadays you can find lots of examples. So there's Vladimir Krainev in Germany, developed big music school. Vladimir Viardot in Texas. Rina Sherishevskaya, just the latest sensation in Paris. So she is the teacher of Luca Debarque and Alexander Kantorov. And it's probably, you can't find any music institution in the world right now which doesn't have a representative of Russian music school. And I think so for nowadays it's kind of, you know, the Russian school and Russian method lost its geographical connotation and become like an idiom, like, I don't know, Russian roulette or Moscow mule, which has nothing to do with Moscow anymore. And so what's the specific characteristic of Russian music school? Can we go to next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So it's first of all quality of touch and quality of color. So how you touch the piano, what touch, what sound you can develop with the different touch, with the different gesture even. Then, of course, it's imitation of human speech and singing, especially singing. All great Russian pianists. So if you look at the Horowitz or Rachmaninoff and all others, so they were enjoying singing. They had a very close friend and admire lots of different singing, Italian and Russian, and you know the Rachmaninoff and his friendship with Shaliapin and so and so. Now, how to achieve it? It's attention to phrasing. So the phrase needs to follow the human voice and human speech. And how to achieve it? Again, it's legato. It's a special development of legato and pedaling. So here I would say legato more with the fingers than pedaling. Pedaling just helping, but if you can achieve complete legato with the fingers, so that's probably the best. Pedaling just gives you color. And the differentiation of different layers and voicing. And that's why studying polyphony, always constantly polyphony, it's very important, because then you can find in any music, and we talk about this on a particular example later, you can find it's very, very important. What you bring up, what you're putting on the background in the music, it gives the depth and different perspective of music. So how to achieve all of this and how to get it done? So that's what I started to do. Yeah, there is one more thing. It's very important. It's not very often mentioned, but it's I mentioned the Alexander Nikolaev, this book. Can we stop sharing, please? Yeah. So this is the book which every child studying music in Russia knows. It's the School of Piano Playing by Nikolaev. And so he put his principles in the beginning. And of course, it's emotional and emotion and character of music comes first. And then he said very interesting thing, which is, I think, the like basics of all of this. Can we have a next slide, please? So usually, how we approach music, we see the music, we start to play it, and then we hear what we're playing. What Nikolaev said, if you see the written music, try to hear it first, and then you play. So you have already some image of what this music should be, and then it gives you more opportunity to just bring it up. But you need to hear it first. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight. So the reading needs to be there, and sight singing needs to be there, and the ear training needs to be there. And of course, not everybody can do it completely, but I know people with perfect pitch who can look at the music and know exactly how it sounds. But that's our goal, and that's the progress going toward it. It's very, very important. And can we have a next slide? That's what I put. It's very like traditional repertoire. You see the saraband by Handel on the first on one side, and the little scherzo by Carl Maria von Weber on the other side. By looking at that, can you imagine how it's gonna sound? What can we say? If you look at the Handel, you see the big chords, right? So you probably think, oh yeah, so that's gonna be, it's slow and it's minor, and the big chords and a very particular rhythm, you can kind of hear it if you really think about this, at least rhythm. And then you look at the chord progression and you can also hear it. Now, if you look at the scherzo, you see, oh, that's a different thing. Even so, it's a minor key, but I see that it's going to be much more lively and it's going to run, and it has some interesting accidental. And so you can have an image, an emotional and characteristic image already before you start to play. So, and then if you develop it from the very early age, it's going to develop and it's going to improve. And then you finally can get to this point when you can hear the music before you start to play. And then you know what you want to hear when you start to play. So it takes away mechanical, just moving the fingers and then realize, oh, what music I'm playing. So that's a very important thing, and then we work on it. Now, can we stop sharing, please? First of all, how to achieve all this great characteristic and great playing? It starts with the posture, which I pay lots of attention to. First of all my students probably hear me yelling, heels on the floor, heels on the floor. Because if you put your heels on the floor, you kind of support your entire body, and your upper body can be free to do whatever you need to do. It's number one, and posture and the sitting long and high and with the straight back. And then, of course, it's a very important thing to have a relaxed arm and fingers and hands and wrist. So in the other book I found, which written by Anna Artabalevskaya, another great teacher, she said, pretend that your arms are hose and you need to, and the water goes from here all the way to the piano. So if you bend it somewhere, if you stop it, the water not gonna go. So the energy of your sound needs to go from back of your neck by the hose, through your arm, through your wrist, through your fingers, and to the piano. And this relaxation and freedom of arms and hands, of course, doesn't come overnight, and it takes lots of time and it takes lots of attention from the teacher to look at that and help the student. But everybody different, everybody's body is different, so all people need to start to work on it by themselves and achieve this in complete relaxation. So then you have much more possibility to get all this legato, great sound, everything. So my lessons usually start with checking the right posture, and then we playing scales, almost no exception. And I find out that the structures of the lesson, it's very important. So they, especially little kids, they know what to expect in the beginning, and they know that they need to warm up. Can we have a next slide, please? Yeah, Chantel? Yeah. All right. Benefit of playing scales. Number one is the physical warm-up, right, of your instrument. And so I always say, like in any sport, if you come to play basketball, you're not gonna go on a field right away to play. So you're gonna do warm-ups. So our fingers and arms also need warm-ups to do whatever we need to do. And then I find out that it's very important. So the kids coming from all over, so they have so many things to do. If you come from soccer practice, let's say, or if the game what you lost, so you need to switch your mind and you need to switch your attention and forget about what is outside the class and get some sound and get some discipline and order in your head. And if in sport we warming just our body, playing scales, you also warming your mind and your ears, because you start to listen to what you're doing. And so I think it's very, very important. Then use scales as like a laboratory. So let's say we need to achieve some staccato, so we can working on this with the scale. We need to achieve big, important, powerful chord. You can achieve it during your chord progression. Then talking about differentiation of the layers and get the different voicing. So also, if you need to play this, why not to practice scale and get right hand louder than left, just to get this different pressure in it. And now try different way. Try to do left hand louder than than right. You get the physical sense of how to do it, and then when you play the actual piece, so then you can apply it to there, and that's with everything. And then yeah, and on a scale, when you do scale, you can do and study lots of theory, right? So we're talking about different key signature, we're talking about circle of fifths, intervals, which is also very important, and little by little you introduce different elements of theory, which is kind of built in this in the school, in the playing scales and arpeggio and all the exercises. Next slide, please. Now, that's what I usually do in the beginning. So we start from 5 fingers pattern. Then when students are growing, so very quickly, actually, I don't like to stay on this too long, and we're going to scales. And this 1 octave first and 2 octaves, up to 4 octaves. And then you play scales in thirds and tenths and sixths. And then next one is arpeggio. So I start with cross hands arpeggio, which is easy. And then switching to extended position, right? Starting from 2 octaves, then 4 octaves also. Then we do inversions. And then, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, short arpeggio. So it's a kind of hybrid between arpeggio and inversions. Or you can say it's inversions of arpeggio. So when you're doing this one, and so and so. What is important, we probably need to get the time sharing off. Let's get the time sharing off, and I want to show something. Yeah, so this short arpeggio are, I think, very important for the wrists. When you do this, you learn how to really release your wrist and make it flexible. Arpeggio, and then it's chord progression, which is, yeah, you know, and it's also can be more difficult when the kids grow up. Now, there is very special exercise. It calls 11 chords. It was developed in Central Music School in Moscow, and kind of everybody started to do it. So that's 11 chords. It's actually 11 arpeggios. And what it does, it's you're playing from the same note, major chord, minor chord, first inversion major, first inversion minor, second inversion major minor, and then dominant 7 with all inversions, and at the end is full diminished chord. So it's switching the fingers, position of the fingers, and your mind, of course, and your ears. So it looks like this. Usually the more advanced kids doing it, and for 4 octaves, but to save time I'll do it in 2 octaves. So major, minor, first inversion major, and minor, and dominant 7. First of all, it builds endurance, it builds your focus, staying focused for a longer time, and it's a great exercise. So, and then beside the scales, so there is a couple exercise which I always name somehow, because imagery work very good with, especially with the little kids. So if you can explain it with the terms and adult language, just give it a name, and then it works. So the first exercise, I think it's great, it works for everybody, calls dog on a leash. So pretend you have a very mean dog and it's barking all the time, and you have to hold him on a leash very strong, so the dog is not running and biting people. So what you want to do, the first finger is the leash, Second finger is dog and it's barking. Now second finger is the leash and third finger is barking. And so, and the backwards. So it works for independence of fingers. And then when they do it pretty good, so you can work on legato. It's very helpful. So you cutting number of barks. So 2, and then finally you do 1, only 1 bark, but you holding the previous note. And then that's the legato what we want to achieve. Then you can do it with different intervals. And then you do it legato. So that's very helpful exercise. The other exercise it calls rubber band. It's based on chromatic scale and in opposite direction. So you can do it from D or from A flat, right, on a piano when it's symmetrical. So again, image, what you do, what's happened to rubber band when you stretch it? So it's nice and soft, and then you stretch it, it becomes very tense. So it's great to work for crescendo and diminuendo and building the tension and releasing the tension. So if you go, and it's very helpful to involve the body movement with that. It's another exercise. So now the next exercise, it's actually written by one of the Gnesian's sister, but I use it before they learn how to read music. It's in this book, and I'll show you the slide later. But what is this? I call it flying. So it sounds like this. Yeah, so it's again for the wrist and from achieving the big sound. So the first concerto, Tchaikovsky first concerto, basically based on this thing. And it's very easy to learn, and people for I don't know, in third, fourth lesson they can do it. And then it's changing fingers. So if you go 1 and 3, then 2 and 4, and 3 and 5, and the same thing with the left hand. Can we have a next slide, please? Yeah, so that's how it looks like. But it's not necessarily to read. You can do it without. So the kids are learning it very good. And please, next slide. And the last exercise, what I want to show, I call it waterfall. It's the Czerny etude. And if you start to do cross hands arpeggio, so then it's easy to do. Sorry. I forgot. And kids love it because it's easy to learn, and you don't have to read music. By the way, reading music, I think it's very important. I don't remember that any of my classmates or any of us had any difficulties, because that's the main focus starting from the preparatory class, what we were talking about. Even before you play music, so you start to read music. before you play piano. So you start to read music, you know the music stuff, and you know where the notes are located. And then when you come to the instrument, so you already know how it looks like and what to do with that. Yeah, so that's the beginning of the lesson. So then I use etudes, studies, mostly Czerny Germer in the beginning, then Opus 299, and then Opus 740. I know there's lots of different opuses and lots of more, but that's what I was doing, and I just continue. It's enough, more than enough. It's many studies. So then I add Mashkovsky and some other, but mostly the Czerny. And the last part of the lesson would be working on actual music pieces. So I just want to do this example. And so maybe I'll play it first and then we'll look at the music. Or maybe, yeah. So this is Reverie or Sweet Dreams by Tchaikovsky. And so you know this music probably, it's very popular. Yeah, can we have a next slide, please? Yeah, so if you can see, there's a lot of things we can work on. First of all, it's legato, of course, on the melody line, right? Now, I would talk about different quality of intervals, because they're very expressive. And if you can ask your student to sing it, which they not gonna do it, but then I said, go to the, when you go in the shower, try to sing this music. So, and then you can see, so the difference between second and then big interval of fifths, and then it's another fifth diminishes, but then it goes to sevenths. And you can see that in sevenths, it's going to be much more tension you can build and then release it. That's number one. Number two, it's the voicing and different layers, right? So beside the melody, if you can see in left hand, it's also two layers. That's the bass line, which needs to be brought up. So if you're playing it like this, it's not the same effect that if you work on these lines and then put it, course, the middle part, when main melody in the left hand, so it's also different pressure in the right hand and the left hand. So a lot of little details, but I think if you build the right instrument, so then it's all achievable. So can we stop sharing, please? Yeah, so I always say, they said, one, I don't want to do all this technical thing, I want to play music. And first of all, consider scales and exercises as the music, because it has some artistic value. And then I always say that you want to go to the beautiful country of music. But to do this, you have to have a reliable vehicle. You have to have car, or you have to have plane, or you have to have something. And you don't want it to be broken, or you don't want it to be very uncomfortable. So you need to build this vehicle very comfortable, which can take you to the place when you want to be with the music. So, and we probably need to finish, right? So the time is running, and I just want at the end to give you two little examples of wonderful Russian pianists. So one is Vladimir Horowitz, of course, everybody knows that. And nowadays there is the pianist Grigory Sokolov. He is unfortunately not flying long distances and never comes to United States, but I think it's a quintessential pianism and musicality right now in the world. So we're gonna start with Sokolov playing A minor waltz by Chopin. Yeah. Thank you. So, do we have time to do another example? Let's listen to Horowitz then. All right. Um, so at the end, I just want to say thank you for CMC for doing that, and thank you for become my second home and introduce me to lots of new stuff and new music and new approach to music. And of course, to Grace and Traeger and Chantel for helping me for today's presentation. And last but not least, to all my students who continue to trust me with their body and soul, and who teach me every day how to become a better teacher. Thank you very much. And so I'm ready to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Thank you, Lilia. That was just beautiful, and what a wonderful way to end.
Okay.
I've been watching the chat, and I don't see a lot of questions in the chat, but I know, Traeger, you had a question or two. Do you want to put that out for Lilia?
Yeah, well, well, I had a lot of questions actually, and especially about the. I mean, it's great to see how you teach and the way that you approach melody and how to bring in the hard stuff, the scales and the inversions and all that. It's that was just fascinating to hear. But what did you study in musicology? I didn't.
So the musicology in Russia, so it's part of music education. It's not in a university. It's at the conservatory, and we study everything. So at the beginning, the first 3 years, so we studying both the harmony, polyphony, ear training, and music history in all different approach. Unfortunately, not world music history. So mostly European music history, Russian and Soviet, the music of Soviet Republic. And then, which was very important for me, was fascinating. I don't use it much, but it was very interesting to study orchestral score reading and analyzing. So, and you have to sight read, so that you have a Beethoven symphony, the orchestral score, and you try to read it on sight. And that was very good. And analysis of musical form and music and harmony. So that was lots of different things. And then at the end of fourth year, you have to choose your teacher, like a and write the dissertation basically. So that's your diploma. And so my diploma was about Bela Bartok and his ballet Wooden Prince, which is not very well known, but it's very interesting piece and unfortunately not very often staged. But so that was the deal. And also part of this is the music critique. And so that's what gave me opportunity to write a lot of articles in Russia and work as the here it calls dramaturg in opera house, but it's more than dramaturg. I was dramaturg and a public relation and something else and development. The only thing we don't have fundraising, right? Because it's all government funding. But here in the opera houses, let's say in the United States, it would be 3 different departments with 50 people working. So that was one person and in opera house in Russia, which I did. You can do everything, but you do what you can.
I'm just thinking that the sight reading of the orchestral scores must stand you in good stead for all of the accompanying you do, the sight reading you must do.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And sight reading is very important part. So when I turned to musicology in high school, I'm very grateful to my teacher because she was saying, okay, if you're not gonna work 6 hours a week, a day, working on Liszt etudes or Chopin etudes or something, every day, every lesson you're gonna come and read some new stuff. So I was sight reading all Beethoven sonatas, Haydn sonatas, well-tempered clavier, everything what you possibly can think about. So, and that's really, it's a skill. That's what I tell my students. So I said, oh, I don't know how to sight read. I don't know. It's very hard. You just do it. You do it every day and you'll see that it's going to improve because it's skill you need to hone and then here you are.
And also, I think that Marta or Jennifer had a question too. I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Lilia, you said that you thank you. It's been really inspiring. I love hearing about how you teach. And you talk about posture. You talk about emphasizing posture and getting students to put their heels on the floor. And I wonder what you do with the really little ones.
I put the footstool.
And
Yeah.
you have them, you make sure they have one at home.
Yeah, I can control it really, but unfortunately, but yeah, I insist that they have a footstool because you can try it for yourself. I have a game I call it fire alarm. So let's say you sit and you're playing piano and you need and there is fire alarm. You need to run. How are you gonna do it? Your heel's supposed to be on the floor. You can always stand up. Like that, and you can stand up right away. And when you're playing, so if you have the support and ground yourself, so then upper body is free, so you can free your hand more. You can lean, you can play big chord everywhere on the piano. If you don't have your heels on the floor, you're gonna fall. And I try, and the little kids are falling, and then they understand.
That's cute. Great. Thanks. And so if you have the kids having their feet on a stool, that means they can't use the pedal until they get taller. Is that how it ends up working out?
Yeah, it's okay.
Do you have them kind of stand up and lean against the chair sometimes if they're small and they're ready for pedal?
Yeah. So, but again, pedal is the last resort. Try to do everything with your hands.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
pedal when you grow up a little bit. Yeah, we used to have this stool with the pedal extension, an enrichment branch, but it disappeared. I don't know where it is.
Okay.
I was going to buy it, so it's probably my next project. I have to find it and
We
buy
need to
it.
get another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Looks
maybe
like-
CMC can buy again, because we had a very old one and broken one, I think.
I think we have time for one more question. Hank and Lynn, can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry, we're not.
I'm sorry, I thought I had done that way earlier.
Okay.
I'm not a pianist, but I have always loved music, and I've had a piano since I was in the first grade, that I have carted everywhere that I've moved, a lot of different places. And I always dreamed that someday I'm going to take lessons again. And this was just a delightful introduction back into the world of piano. Thank you so much. I just have enjoyed this. It's been delightful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lilia. I think maybe we need to close the session for now. And that's a beautiful.
Yeah, I have a few more questions. I'd love to know where the curriculum came from and all that stuff, but I'll have to take you out for a coffee sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime, give me a call. So the curriculum came, so which one? What I do or what I was?
No, the whole, but I don't know if we have.
What I was studying, I try to translate it to English, let's say, to American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we may have to have another session, but thank you, Lilia.
Yeah.
This has really
Thank you
been
very much.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank you, everybody.
beautifully done. Thank you.
All right.
excellent. Thank you
And
so much.
Just let me just say, do come back next week. We will have Michaela overall on a very important topic. We're talking about teaching and supporting neurodiverse students, which is very, comes into our teaching a lot. And then the following week, Marta, who's with us this evening, Marta Rodriguez Salazar, will be talking about her binational background and how that has influenced her musical perspectives. So 2 more very, very interesting sessions to wind up our season of CMC sessions. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, and hope to see you next week at 7 on Thursday.
Yeah. Thank you.
You.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lilia.
Bye.